What is up, you guys? And today I'm going to be showing you guys how to make Lego Ninjago Shurikens of ice. So let's get right into it. So let's start with finding the files for the Lego Ninjago Shurikens of ice. So today I'm on Thingiverse. It's a great site with a bunch of free files. And all we're going to do is search up Lego Ninjago. Boom. And it's going to be one of the very first things that pop up. We're going to click it. You're going to download all the files right here, and they're going to take those files and put them into Cura or whatever slicing software you have or you want to use. It doesn't matter as long as you can transfer it to your 3D printer. And all you're going to do is with that file, it's going to look like this once you extract it all. And all we're going to do is put the left and the right half onto right here. And once they're in, if they're overlapping, just move them out of the way a little bit, and you're good to go. This is all we're gonna do. We're not gonna adjust the size right now, and none of that. Maybe in the future I might make one the size of my build plate and make a super shuriken, but that's not right now. We're just working on doing this. So right now I have my settings on fine with 15% infill because I don't want to do that much sanding, and I just want to really just maybe sand that. All I'm going to be really sanding is these corners right here because that's the best part, maybe some of the details, and that's all I want to do. So I have it on fine settings so that I don't have to do that much. So let's slice it. It's going to take not that long, and it's going to take around 11 hours and 36 minutes. Now, since I have it on fine, it's going to take a little longer to do this. But as you can see, it only takes 54 grams of filament, which is barely anything. And if you want, you can just do normal if you really want, which is probably going to take this down to 10 hours, maybe less. If we do normal, no, actually 8 hours, even better, and just a little bit more filament, actually. So it all depends on what settings you want to do, how fast you want to bust these out, and it's just up to the person that's actually doing this. So let's print these out and let's get into all the sanding, the priming, and painting. So we got all four fully printed out, and now we get to the grunt work of all 3D printing if you ever want anything to look great or spectacular, and that is the sanding, priming, painting part of it, gluing, all that. That's kind of like the grunt work. The easy part's printing it, because it's just a machine doing all the work, but now you gotta do the grunt work. So with these shirts, let's use this one as an example, they are gonna be pretty hard to sand. When I printed these, I really tried making sure that they were already looking spectacular, but of course a little bit of sanding doesn't hurt. With doing this, the best thing I'm gonna have to sand that would be easiest would be the sides here, and maybe these corner areas here, just places that are flat, because dealing with maybe this dragon head here, it's gonna be very difficult to sand. So right now we're just gonna try to work all the areas that I can easily sand that seem somewhat flat, somewhat smooth. And the hardest part about this is usually with all my other prints so far, I've been able to use a block sander for this, but right now I will not be able to use a block sander because that's just gonna be, it's just not the best tool for this. It's just going to have to be all done by hand. So let's get into it. So after about 30 minutes of just working on this one shirt, and after doing multiple layers of grit on it, finally got the first phase done of it. Before the priming, this is the best I can do. I don't know, it's really hard to get in between these crevices here. They're extremely hard to get into, but I think that the primer should just make that all feel fine. The biggest things were this edges here. So hopefully everything's gonna go fine. Now I just have to work on these three, then prime, and let's see how they look. So we got all the shurikens nicely sanded, very sharp edges for future videos that I'm thinking of. But right now, we got everything nicely sanded. I think I did a great job making this look really good sanded. I've tried this out earlier when I first got a 3D printer. It looked nowhere near as good as what it does right now. So let's prime it, let it sit overnight, and let's see how these look. So we got everything nicely primed. It's nice and wet. I don't see any streaks or bubbles or anything of that sort. So now let's put it into a room where there's no dust, just nice stale room, and let it sit overnight and see what it looks like tomorrow. So it's been about 24 hours since I put the primer on. It's completely dry and it looks amazing. The primer did a really good job at filling in those layer lines while also keeping the detail. Like the greatest example is with these eyes right here on kind of like the dragon on the shuriken. You can still see them very clearly even though the primer was applied. In some primers, if you would have done that with the other ones, that I would have just faded in with the rest of it because of how much it would have filled. But the primer I used did an extremely good job. So now let's get some spray paint on these things. I got a really good gold spray paint. I'm going to be using this Krylon Fusion. Krylon is, in my personal opinion, is one of the best spray paints so far that I've used for 3D printing stuff that's been primed or just anything 3D printed. Krylon has been by far the greatest thing I've used. So let's put that on and come back when it's fully dried and then we can assemble. The golden paint has fully dried on these things. I just left them overnight, so if they're not dry, I kind of blame the paint other than me, but everything turned out amazing. They already have a nice glow to them as it is, but we're going to take it one step further and we're going to add a clear coat. It's just going to make it look a lot shinier, a lot nicer. And it also will add a slight protection to it, so if it gets a slight bump, if anything, the clear coat right here is going to take most of the damage and the paint itself will be perfectly fine. So let's add that and we'll check on it later and then we can glue them together. So I almost ruined the entire project right now. What I grabbed earlier was actually white spray paint, and I just saw the label of like the 2X and just like white and clear because it kind of looked the same, and I almost sprayed down the entire thing with white spray paint, which almost would have ruined everything. Would have started over from scratch, might even 3D print the whole thing again. But luckily, I did not spray it and I did a little test spray and I realized that it was white. So now let's add the proper clear coat to make it look nice and shiny and not ruin the whole thing. So let's get to that. So they're all dry after the glossing, and now we're gonna do a fun little experiment. So I have this thing called PLA Gloop. It's a special kind of glue that works specifically with 3D prints with fusing them together. So today we're gonna do a fun experiment where we're gonna use one shuriken with gloop. So let's say we use this with gloop, and we'll use these shurikens when we fuse them together. We'll use super glue. We'll clamp them down. I'm debating to use paper towels so that the paint here doesn't get messed up, but what I'm worried about is that these paper towels will fuse with that, and then it's gonna look terrible once I unclamp it. So we'll see. We'll test it out. We'll see which one works better. So for you guys in case you guys ever want to try that, if that's better, or just stick with super glue. Let's find out. So the shurikens have been glued together, clamped, the glue is dried. They are all good to go now. And honestly, these things turned out amazing. If anything, I think I might have wanted to go supersized with these, like maybe double the size of this. But then again, that'd take forever to make. But anyway, it turned out amazing. They feel extremely solid and put together. Both of them look and feel just fantastic. But if any of you guys actually want a pair of these fully sanded, put together, painted, all of that, I'll be selling these down in the description. So if you guys want one, look at it there. But these things turned out amazing. If you guys have any other ideas of stuff you guys want me to do or stuff you want me to make, let me know.